Hey, Jake. Doing well? Okay. So,
I have that thing.
thank you for learning with me. Thanks to Lisa and the team for making a delicious lunch. And wanted to do some studying today. So, perhaps like me, my focus really has been for the last 489 days, or I'm not sure the exact number, it's been better, focused on the hostages in Gaza. And this week, actually, end of last week, actually it was Shabbat morning. Last Shabbat morning, when many of us may have been in synagogue here, on Saturday in Israel, Saturday morning, Daniela, Karina, Naama, Leary, and Agam all went to synagogue. I don't know if you know that. The 5 observers that were on the border of Gaza, that were hostage for 15 months, that were released in the last 2 weeks, they went to synagogue and they recited a prayer. The synagogue called Gomel. Birkat HaGomel. So what I'd like to do today is to study a little bit about that. In general, that is the prayer about recovery and thanking God for overcoming a traumatic or difficult life situation. So I want to look at the basis of that. And there actually is a connection to our parsha this week also. So let me get on Zoom and start. Yeah, beginning. See? So Zoomers, we're going to do some screen sharing. Yeah, sorry, you have to look at the screen for me today. So I want to read. We are in Masechet Brachot in the Talmud 54a. Someone to be a reader? All right, go for it.
This Mishnah. Oh, someone else doing it.
Yeah, you're good.
This Mishnah, which includes all of its chapters, Mishmanot, contains a series of blessings and a halachot that are not recited at specific times, but rather in response to various experiences and events.
So just to back up for a second, even in some of the classes that I've taught in the last couple of months, we've looked at different prayers that are recited. We looked at the morning blessings, right? Thanking God for straightening our backs, for giving us clothes, for having eyesight, right? And we looked at very specific, thanking God for making us a Jew, or perhaps thanking God for not making me a woman, depending which version you look at, right? So we have studied here prayers that have entered our daily prayer cycle. But there are also prayers that are said not at a specific time, not at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday or 8 o'clock every Tuesday, but there are some prayers that we say as Jews in response to a life experience or an event that happens in the world. So this section of the Mishnah deals specifically with that, and obviously we're going to get to, it's not every day that someone who was a hostage in Gaza is returned home. What should they say? Is there actually something in our tradition to say? And perhaps there is some life experience that's happened in our own lives that are comparable. So now, if you can pick up, Karen, now we're actually in the Mishnah. That was the editor's intro.
One who sees a place where miracles occurred on Israel's behalf recite, blessed, who performed miracles for our forefathers in this place. One who sees a place from which idolatry was eradicated recites, blessed, who eradicated idolatry tomorrow.
Has anyone said this blessing before? You have? Alina, where? When?
Actually, in our shul,
In our shul.
yeah, on one of the minyanim after surgery.
Okay, well, this blessing is not Gomel.
Oh,
We didn't get there yet.
okay.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Gomel in a second, right? In particular, right? Karen read the opening of the Mishnah has this specific blessing, right? I didn't give you the Hebrew, but you can look up top. It's She'asa nisim lavotenu bamakom hazeh. Sounds almost like a blessing that you probably said, right? She'asa nisim avoteinu bayamim hahem. That word which we recite on Hanukkah. Right? We also say it on a couple other days too. But Hanukkah is one of those miracles, but this is not that God did for our ancestors at that time, but b'makom hazeh, in this place. So have you ever been in a physical place where a miracle happened for our ancestors? Or this other blessing, a place where, right, where there was idolatry performed and that was removed. That's this blessing. So you don't have to tell me where. And then you can see, right, there's then these lists of natural events that happens. If you see thunder, if you see wind, if you see lightning, if you see a huge sea, if you see a rainbow, right? And
That would have actually.
right, when you hear good tidings, when you hear good news, there actually is a blessing. It's so rare these days, right? Right? So has anyone actually said that one when you've heard such good news that you've said a blessing?
No.
Maybe you should, right? Maybe you should. So,
Yeah. As the birth of a child.
maybe for the birth of a child, right? We'll talk about that. Okay, so get to the spot we want to start.
Oh, we didn't start yet?
Yeah. Actually, where we want.
That's only an introduction.
Yeah, that was only, you got it. How did you know that? Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna get to, that was the continuation of the Mishnah. Now we're gonna get to the Gemara, the rabbis, where they debate and try to understand better that Mishnah that says, when you come to a place where a miracle happened, that you say that blessing. All right, Karen, go ahead.
With regard to the obligation to recite a blessing to renew, Gemara asks, from where are the matters derived? Rabbi Yochanan said, the Booth states, and Jethro said, blessed be the Lord who delivered you out of the hands of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. A blessing is recited for a miracle.
Okay, does anyone know who Jethro was?
Yep.
Yitro,
Moshe.
Moshe's father-in-law, who was Jewish?
No.
Right, so a non-Jew is, it's interesting, right? The Talmud is asking, what's the proof that you should recite a blessing at the site of a, right? And a non-Jew is the source that says, he said in the Torah, right? He said, blessed is the one who delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, right? Jethro meets up with Moses and the Israelites after they were freed from Egypt. And Jethro is the one who says, thank God, right? A miracle happened.
They weren't in the same place and it wasn't the same.
Okay, now you're getting very specific. Yeah. Now you're getting very specific. So the Gemara, the Talmud then asks a question. Karen, if you want to read it.
For a miracle that occurs for the multitudes, we recite a blessing, but for a miracle that befalls an individual person, we do not recite a blessing. Wasn't there an incident where a certain man was walking along the right side of the Euphrates River when a lion attacked him? A miracle was performed for him, and he was rescued. Came before Rabbi, who said to him, every time you arrive there to the site of the miracle, recite the blessing. Blessed to perform the miracle for me.
Okay, so can you catch what the rabbis are deliberating and discussing at this moment? Jethro's blessing, when Jethro says a blessing that the Israelites were freed, is that one Jew? Was it his son-in-law Moses? Is this his two grandsons? Or is it that that God saved the Jewish people? Everybody, right? So the rabbis here are saying, okay, it's not that you experienced a personal miracle, right? Gary, you were in some very precarious situation, right? Let's say you were held up, God forbid, right? You were held up with a gun, right? Somebody had a gun, right? You didn't know if you were gonna make it. And before they could pull the trigger, the police came, tackled the guy, and he got arrested and you were safe. Right?
That's some.
Let's consider that a miracle. There's all question whether that's a miracle. Whether it's a miracle or not, I don't know, but now has that happened to the Jewish people? Or let's say it was a rabbi instead of Gary, no offense, but yeah, right? Or the president of the United States, right? Like, is that,
Careful.
right? Is that an individual miracle or is that a national, large scale? So that what they're saying here is, right, that first sentence, right, a miracle that happens for a lot of people. That we should recite a blessing for. Makes sense, right? Egypt, Hanukkah, right? Go down the list. These are like grand miracles that we bless and thank God for. But that Gary thankfully wasn't hurt in that made up situation. That is a personal miracle. You might mark it. Like, by the way, organ donors, right? Organ donors mark the day of their donation as like a birthday, as like a miraculous day. They mark it. But is that like something that like the Jewish people should mark the fact that, right, you got a new liver, thank God, and you're gonna get another 30 years of life?
Dios santo, tú me.
Depends how old you were.
He must be 90.
Yeah,
Gotta go.
right, so what they're saying here is, what's the answer that the rabbis say? Right, only the individual should recite it, and in particular here, this is if there's a place, right? When Gary, every time Gary passes the BP station at the corner of whatever, where he was held up, he should say the blessing every time he passes there. Yeah,
I don't like it.
yeah, Bill?
We're gonna get to the point though where you save one life, it's like saving the world.
Ah,
You know, even though it might not be.
yeah, the rabbis don't take it.
They don't take.
The rabbis don't
No
take it.
problem.
Yeah,
They've got to read what we would do.
yeah.
A number of years ago, my daughter and I were in a car accident on 271. It was winter and all of a sudden, before I knew it, my car was spinning and we ended up facing the ongoing traffic. But thank God, there was no car coming toward us.
Mhm.
And my daughter's, our daughter's Orthodox.
Yeah,
Whenever we're on 271 together, or even when she's alone,
yeah,
is this the prayer that she says?
it could be, yeah. Does she say a
I
prayer?
mean, yes, she does.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
the prayer, yeah.
Every time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Baruch she'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. Thank God.
It sounded familiar.
Yeah, thank God. Now,
But a lot of people avoid places where they've had an accident.
Well,
Yeah.
you kind of.
So, by the way, just to make a note here, we're getting very specific. If you look at the blessing here, if you can see my screen, Baruch she'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. Blessed are you, the one who has done for me a miracle in this place. What's missing? If I'm gonna say, let's say a blessing, right? Well, how do you normally start a blessing?
Adonai Eloheinu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. What's missing?
Adonai.
Adonai and melech
Oh,
haolam.
what's that?
Right, what's missing is God's holy name, and the identification of God as King of the world, creator of the universe, however you want to translate that phrase. So, do you know why that's missing? The Rabbis are
For
very
everybody.
careful. What?
Because then be for everybody, not necessarily Jewish.
Yeah, the rabbis are very careful. It's called Shem u'Malchut. It's Shem is God's name and Malchut is the sovereignty, the kingship of God. The rabbis are careful to say when, it's a blessing and not a blessing. Like when you add God's name in, then it gets a little dicey. The stakes get higher. The stakes get higher. So now you have to add, Nina, you have to ask your daughter, does she say God's name or not in it? I would say it because I would say God's name in it, but here they're not. Yeah, Sheila, and then we want to go.
You can say that every time you go to the hospital when you pass the operating room, if you want to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
some
right,
people
right.
it's-
And we'll get there. So, right, by the way, this example was a little more extreme, right? A lion attacked him and he was rescued, right? So there's a question, and we're gonna get to that, Nina,
It would be a
possibly
car.
is, Right, we're gonna talk about this concept. In the end, we're getting to gratitude for God, being thankful, and when you should say the Gomel prayer. Because people call me and like, they tell me their life situation, what happened to them. I want to say Gomel, or should I say Gomel, right? Should there be a limit where you think God intervened in your life and saved you?
Would it ever be wrong to thank God for it anyway?
Well, and that's, I think, why the rabbis make the distinction of not including God's name in here. Like it's, right? You say this was a miraculous moment. I say, I'm glad you survived it, but I'm not sure where God's hand was in this, or it wasn't, for you. To me, it doesn't sound that, tenuous, right? Okay, but Karen, if you read a couple more,
Let someone else read.
someone else read. Another reader.
Go for it.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Go for it. Once.
And once when Mar, son of Ravina, was walking in a valley of willows and was thirsty for water, a miracle was performed for him, and a spring of water was created for him, and he drank.
Yeah, has that happened for you before? I was so thirsty, I knew there was nothing around, and suddenly
It happened for
water, yeah, I have a water appeared. Is that a miracle? Sure. Okay, well, happened, this guy, another thing happened, just the same guy, yeah. Keep going.
Once when Mar, son of Ravina, was walking in the marketplace of Mahoza, and a wild camel attacked him. We've all had our experiences.
Yes.
The wall cracked open and he went inside it and he was rescued.
It just so happened, a wild animal let loose in the middle of the marketplace, and it was going to attack him, and the stone wall that he was next to, an opening appeared in it, and he was able to tuck himself behind that opening. We can extrapolate this, but it's more about the fact that a hole magically appeared.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here we go, go ahead.
It's more like
When he
motion.
came to the willows, he recited, "Blessed who performed a miracle for me in the willows and with the camel." Then, when he came to the marketplace of Mahoza, recited, "Blessed who performed a miracle for me with the camel and in the willows,"
Okay, keep going.
indicating that one recites a blessing even for a miracle that occurs to an individual. The sages say, on a miracle performed on behalf of the multitudes, everyone is obligated to recite a blessing.
Okay,
On a miracle
right.
performed.
So now they circle back to their opening thing, right? A miracle that happens for a large group of people, everybody recites that blessing, like the Exodus from Egypt, which we're reading about in our parsha right now. But, let's say, thankfully, right, someone has, right, survives cancer, right, like that, or, think about like whatever else, right? Thank God, amazing, but, I don't have to recite, it's not my own personal salvation. I'm very thankful that it happened, but I don't recite that blessing, just the personal individual it happened to. Yeah, Gary.
Isn't it appropriate in the way that we view a happening or a circumstance? And we attribute it to divine intervention as opposed to something. If I'm being attacked and all of a sudden, oh, am I lucky the rabbi comes along and he tackles the guy? Well, that's not divine intervention. That's the rabbi's intervention.
Oh, we don't know, yeah. There's something called hashgacha pratit. There's this idea that, if you believe that God's hand is in everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but we could,
Right?
yeah, but that's.
Right, do we believe in is it just coincidence? Or is this part of some larger plan? Right, it gets problematic,
Yeah.
but, no, I agree with, this is what the rabbis are
No,
saying.
no, I'm
Yeah.
not disagreeing. I'm just presenting it.
Yeah,
in-
yes,
of
100%.
our life's experiences.
Yeah, so,
So.
I mean, I think what I'm hoping, we get to the end point here in 29 minutes is we're going to say, right? Really what we're saying is, right,
39.
is being grateful. Being Jewish, what's the Hebrew name for Jews? Yehudim.
Hodaya.
Comes from the word hodaya, which is the same word as todah and modim and whatever. Thank you. Thank you, right? We are named the thankful people. Right? We are not thankful enough. We're not grateful enough for everything that happens in our lives. We saw that when we looked at those other blessings in the last couple of months, but we take so much for granted, right? And that, right, you'll say, oh, that guy just happened to come along. But, even in Israel, if you watch, like there was a terror attack 2 weeks ago in Tel Aviv, right? And, right, the terrorist was neutralized by just a person, somebody was walking, like, thank God that person was there, right? That only, 2 people were killed. It could have been,
It's like
100.
a parachute opens up.
Yeah. So, it's a great question. Okay, so let's go to the next section. Who wants to read the next section? Yeah, someone want to be our next reader? And we're gonna get to what are the actual places as the Jewish people, right? Not where an individual miracle happened, not where you were in the marketplace and a wild camel came and the hole opened up. So every time you walk by that hole, you should say thank you. But as Jewish people, there are actually specific places we're supposed to say that blessing, thanking God for a miracle. Someone want to be a reader?
The sages taught in a Bereata,
Right.
a list of
Yeah.
places where one is required to recite a blessing due to miracles that were performed there. One who sees the crossing of the Red Sea where Israel crossed, and the crossing of the Jordan and the crossing of the streams of Aram. The hailstones of, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Just keep going.
Eglavish,
Yeah.
on the descent of Bet Horon, the rock of the Og, king of Bashan, sought to hurl upon Israel, and the rock upon which Moses sat when Joshua waged war against Amalek and Lot's wife, and on the wall of Jericho that was swallowed up in its place. On all of these miracles, one must give thanks and offer praise before God.
Okay, thank you. So, have you heard of all of these? No.
Places, so
Have you heard of some of the places? So number one, these are actual places. Some of the stories are, these are all Bible stories, right? Some of them are really, we know, right? The walls of Jericho fell, crossing of the Red Sea, which we read about in this parsha. By the way, also the one with Moses sitting on the stone and holding the hands up, that's also in this parsha. Right? So these are places, right? And we have these other sort of stories, miraculous things that happened. I don't know if you know the story of Og. Og was one of the giants that lived in Canaan, right? And tried to, or nearby and tried to, wasn't a friend of the Jewish people. By the way, they say that when Moses jumped, he could reach his ankle. He was that tall. Og was that tall. Yeah. So, and Lot's wife. Now,
it's places that have to do with Yetziat Mitzrayim and entering the land of Israel.
Yeah.
So-
except for Lot's wife, but yeah, other than that, yeah. Other than
But they
Lot.
fight with the king of.
Yeah, so, right, so these are all connected to miracles that happened. So I really just wanted to show you that the Talmud actually lays out specific places. Okay, and then we're not gonna get to it, but now they actually talk about, as the Talmud always does, they give you a little bit about each of them. And try to figure out what it is. Yeah, some of them the Talmud doesn't even know what the place is and what the story is, and they make something up. I don't make something up, so here's the example. I would say make up. It's interesting. I skipped that. I'll show you the one.
Miracles that supposedly were done before creation. They're talking-
Ah.
I mean, we can't,
Yeah.
the sun standing in the sky, I mean, every time we pass the sun standing in the sky.
Maybe in the place where it happened.
In the place.
There is a place.
Every time a dog.
There's a
talks,
place. Yeah, there's hailstones of El Gavish. They do a whole play on this, right? Al Gavish means because of a man, if you're a Hebrew speaker. So then they figure out what because of a man did hail happen, and that's Moses and the plague of hail. Right? And then that's Al Gavish. But then in Joshua, right, the hail stayed up in the heavens, and then hail came down on the Jewish people. So that's they actually give a specific location where that is. But we're gonna jump a little bit. Okay, here we go. Okay. Who read last? Gary, you want to read again?
I can see it. Rev Yehuda said that Rev said, "For must offer thanks to God with a thanks offering with a special blessing. They are seafarers, those who walk in the desert, and one who was ill and recovered, and one who was incarcerated in prison and went out." All of these appear in the verses of the Psalm 107 and went out.
Okay.
I can't read.
All right, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. So Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, 4 types of people, lehodot, offer thanks. Now you can see in the English translation here, it says, offer thanks to God with a thanks offering called the Todah, and recite a special blessing. In the Torah, in the book of Leviticus, in Parshat Tzav, which is the second portion in the book of Leviticus, there are the continuations of all the sacrifices that are listed that the Jewish people are supposed to bring. There's a sacrifice called the Todah sacrifice, the thank you sacrifice. So what now the rabbis are saying is, it never specifically says who offers the thank you sacrifice. So these are the 4 classifications of people who offer the thank you sacrifice. And the idea is, on top of bringing an offering, they're also supposed to recite a blessing to say thank you. So let's just look at the 4 for a second. Seafarer, right? Someone who crossed the sea,
Yeah.
right? Nowadays, if you take a cruise, is that pretty dangerous?
Yes.
Yeah, you get that.
Right? Those who cross a desert, someone who recovers from being ill, and someone who was freed from prison.
About airplanes nowadays.
No, well, obviously, this is pre-airplanes. The rabbis have a mnemonic for this, which is every letter of one of these spells something. So it's not in the same order here, but it is Chaim, which means life. So just to show you, the one who is sick, recovers from sick, is a chet, right? The one who crosses the sea is your day, right? They cross the sea. One who is freed from prison. Yeah, yeah, maybe it's that now. And the one who crosses the desert, I think, is your day midbar also. So there's 2 yuds and a mem. Yeah, just to show you. So this is the classification. The rabbis then will expand this, right? And each one taken from this, there's a Psalm 107, which you don't have to read, but it's being grateful for all of these things that happen to someone. And all of these 4 can be found there. So the rabbis basically say, these are the 4 categories to say Gomel, to recite the Gomel prayers. So now think about people who have said Gomel, whether it's yourself or whatever, right? One who was ill and recovered, one who has been freed from prison, one who crossed the sea, and one who crossed the desert, right? The extrapolation to that today is a long plane flight to another country, usually over water. Oh, if you fly over water.
I don't see in the Hebrew where it says seafarers. It just says go over the water.
Yeah, it's not a good translation. Crossing the sea. Your day.
Yeah, so by plane, it's fine.
Yeah, but Ron, you said by plane. Ron said yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. So.
Or by spacecraft.
Or by spacecraft. So just comments or think from those 4. Any comments?
I think that different people have for different people, there are different miracles. Some people, like a seafarer, someone who goes on cruises or travels, and it does it all the time, It's not a miracle.
So
Even
you're
though
saying
sometimes-
regularity removes it.
But there are some people, but even though it's regular, it is still dangerous enough that they will bench, whatever the raka is, gomel or whatever.
Yeah, Bill?
Well,
And then we'll get to-
yeah, I mean, playing off that, the first three clearly make it seem like if you've gone through something that might have taken your life and it did not, a serious thing, then okay, that's great, and that's why you can. I'm not able to make that connection with incarceration unless in that time you had a high likelihood of dying while incarcerated.
That's the thing which we didn't talk about is all those things, now we gotta think about 2,000 years ago, ancient times, right? Crossing the sea was very perilous. There were no cell phone, like you couldn't check in on, so you did not know if this person was gonna come back. Oftentimes they didn't come back. Same thing crossing the desert was, this was not easy. Many people didn't make it. Obviously, medical technology was not the same. If you were sick, and the rabbis actually say it's sick for 3 days, you have to be sick for at least 3 days in order to say it. The rabbis actually give they identify it more, right? If you're sick for 3 days or even in the hospital for 3 days, I don't know if people in the hospital for 3 days for anything now.
Yeah,
But-
they try to get them.
Yeah, but, right, this is about gratitude. Part of this is not taking things for granted. If you are a prisoner, are you guaranteed that you're gonna get out and get home? Especially just thinking about being the prisoner, right? Taking Gaza out of that, right? If you're thrown into jail for whatever reason, right? You don't know if you're ever, I think, right? You don't know if you're ever really gonna get out.
Back then.
Back then.
Right, of course.
Now there's rules. Yeah,
Nowadays,
yeah, so, right, but it is a question whether that is in the same category.
And these rabbis, of course, were writing after temple was gone, so they throw in the thanks offering. Almost say gratuitously, but there's no record,
Well, it is.
it's a posting, so I assume moving forward halachically, no one gives a thanks offering.
I want to give a thank offering
Blessing.
in the last 1800. Yeah, but then the Talmud asks, so they actually now, we do find the wording for here. Someone want to read that? Okay, is that Larry? I can't see.
The Gemara asks, what thing was he was saying? Rabbi Yehuda said, blessed is those acts of loving kindness. Bias said, thanks before 10 people, and it is written in the same chapter. Let them exalt him also in the congregation of the people, and praise him in the assembly of the elders. And congregation indicates a group of at least 10 men. Marzuta said 2 of them must be sages, as it is stated there, and praise him in the assembly of elders. These elders are the sages, and the use the plural indicates the minimum.
So now the rabbis are like debating how many people there, do you need elders? Who needs to be there? But we see the basic wording for the Gomel prayer. We're gonna look at that in a second, just to make a note in the Talmud commentary I'm looking at. It says, one who was incarcerated to prison, according to one rabbi, the obligation to give thanks from release is incumbent upon anyone who was incarcerated, even if it was just for financial matters, outstanding debts, or they didn't pay their taxes. Other rabbis hold that the obligation applies only if one was in prison for capital crimes and did not know if they would be let go. Yeah, so the rabbis even here discussed whether it was specific. So I want to zoom in on the words of the prayer itself. So I want to get to a different source. So here's the prayer. Blessed are, this is from my Jewish learning, but blessed are you, Adonai our God, right, however they translate, who rewards the undeserving with goodness and has rewarded me with goodness. Hagomel l'chayavim tovot, right, has rewarded this word chayavim, and we'll talk about what that is, tovot, shekemalani kol tov. So You can see a couple words are repeated here. Right, what words are repeated? You can look at the English too. They're repeated in the English also. Yeah. It's the word gomel and the word
Tov.
tov. Yeah, right. So a version of gomel and a version of tov is repeated. Gomel is reward, let's say, right? And tov is good. What do you think the most important word is in this prayer?
Undeserving.
Yeah, so it's interesting, that's this word, that they're translating this word, the chayavim, as undeserving. Any comments on that?
It's nasty.
You're more grateful if you're undeserving.
Yeah, right, like, so think about number one, we're talking about, go back to those four situations, right? Recovering from sickness, being freed from prison, right? Or surviving some long perilous journey. Right? What do you think? Think about, let's just go to, let's say there were a couple survivors from that horrific Washington DC crash. Right? What do you think they would be thinking, those survivors? Right, so there's Ellen Frankel, who's a scholar and writer. She writes that this is survivor's guilt.
Yes.
That there's a sense of survivor's guilt, right? Think about even some of the hostages who have come out, right? Who feel very guilty, right?
Yeah.
And that this prayer not absolves them of survivor's guilt, but it does something to them.
Gentler.
What do you think? Sold, not sold, interesting, not interesting, agree, disagree?
Difficult. Agree.
To some extent, yeah.
That's I like it. You can't give me too much here. Yeah, I'm trying to find, Rabbi Sachs has a good comment on it. Wherever I can find it.
Yep, that's what the most important word.
Yeah, what's the most important word?
Blessed God. Doesn't matter what comes after.
What?
Blessed to God. Doesn't matter what comes after.
What about the word tov? Good? Good. Is that an important word?
Yes.
What word is important?
I think the word me is important because you're saying that you did not deserve the goodness that you got.
Any other comments?
He's a funny.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that you're undeserving.
Yeah.
No.
It's not really the good translation.
Isn't it obligated?
Yeah.
More like obligated.
How would you say? Guilty? Obligated?
Obligated.
Obligated. Right, a chiyuv is an obligation.
Yeah.
Right, in Judaism, it's actually a legal category to have a chiyuv, right? I'm required to do X, Y, or Z. Right, so is it just the fact that having survived that, let's say with divine help, I am obligated to bring if I was living in temple times, to bring a sacrifice
Yeah.
But now,
and to acknowledge it. Okay.
But now you pay it forward. If you have the feeling of obligation that you survived and the others didn't, then
So how do you
to
pay?
mitigate the guilt, you pay it.
So let me tell you how you pay it forward. We didn't talk about if we lived in temple times and you brought the Todah offering. The Todah offering, has anyone ever brought a Todah offering? No,
Well,
I can,
money,
I can,
yeah.
I'll show it to you.
Way nowadays.
Yeah, you give money to if anyone would like to talk about that, I'm open for, discuss. David, the developments, we'll talk to you, right, David?
Sure.
Okay, so now offering Leviticus chapter 7. Here we go. One who offers it for Thanksgiving, Todah. Okay. One who offers it for Thanksgiving shall offer together with the sacrifice of Thanksgiving, unleavened. This is on top of the animal that was already brought. Unleavened cakes with oil mixed in, unleavened wafers spread with oil, cakes of choice flour with oil mixed in, well soaked. This offering with cakes of leavened bread shall be offered along with one thanksgiving sacrifice. Out of this, the person shall offer one of each kind as a gift to God. It shall go to the priest who dashes the blood and the flesh of the thanksgiving. So there's a lot of food being cooked here. Of well-being shall be eaten on the day that is offered. None of it shall be set aside into the morning. What's the time period that a Todah offering needs to be eaten within?
Before. Same day.
Everything, every single morsel of all those cakes, of all those breads, of all those wafers, and we didn't say a lot of animals also, all had to be eaten. Now, who do we say brings a Todah offering? Is it a group of people or is it one person?
The person who's.
It's the person who had one of those things happen to them. So even though it's an individual thing, the Todah offering has to be eaten in full. So I don't know, I can't eat that much in one day.
But the Kohanim ate it.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is the Kohanim eat everything except for there are certain sacrifices that the Kohanim didn't eat that actually the bringer eats. The Pesach offering is the same. Pesach, right, Passover, when, it used to be that everyone would eat the Paschal lamb themselves as a family, and the same thing actually applied. If you remember, if you learned about this, you have to eat every single thing that night.
Yeah.
So actually it required families to reach out and invite others to do Pesach together, so everyone could eat it all up. And in that way, celebrate Pesach with a larger community and share the story of Pesach and a larger thing. For a miraculous thing that I've recovered from. I'm not gonna just have my own personal moment thanking God and bringing a little sacrifice or putting a little something in the bush. I am going to bring a large meal and invite all these people to eat it with me because it all has to be eaten together. And in that way, I'm marking a private, personal moment in a larger community, professing God's redeeming qualities, that God is able to look to take care of me and celebrate that I've survived this with a larger group.
Okay, but in modern day and age, like now,
Yes.
Like
sponsoring
Kiddush.
that's what I wanted to
Yeah,
say.
so
Yeah.
that's it. So, right, we don't do Gomel in secret. So now let's take it to today, right? Reciting Gomel, reciting this prayer, which is said when the Torah is taken out, Monday morning, Thursday morning, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. So it's two pieces. One piece is that I'm acknowledging this within a larger kind. It's not, Rabbi, can I have a private moment to thank God, with the ark, and if you want to help me say a blessing, but we say it in front of everybody, right? We're thanking God in front of an entire congregation for usually a pretty private thing. Sometimes we actually say it, sometimes we say thank God that, right, this was in a car accident and walked out okay, thank God, right?
I did.
Cancer is in remission, go down the list, all the different things we thank people, right? Thank God that if the hostages, right? Thank God the hostages are free. And we should tell them, and you have to sponsor Kiddush. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the Gomel Kiddush. Yeah.
that's exactly what I want to say, but I have a question,
Yeah.
whether relevant or not.
Yeah.
When you go to synagogue and you say Gomel
Yes.
during services, you say it like to yourself. And there are times you say it out loud where the congregation hears you say it.
This prayer is recited out loud, and we didn't say this. And
Respond.
look, the congregation actually says something in response,
Yeah.
right? They translated it here, right? May the one who rewarded you with goodness continue to reward you with goodness. Selah.
But
Yeah.
is it necessary always? I don't believe it is necessary to say it in a synagogue. Sometimes you have the need. You can go into the shul, even if no one is there, and go to the Aron Kodesh.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So Some people do that, yeah.
Can do that.
You can also do it at a bris, like a woman that gave birth, you can say that a
Doesn't-
bris. Yeah,
Doesn't.
but the ideal is, again, if we're like taking this model of the Hodah sacrifice, that this originally, this blessing accompanied the Todah sacrifice in when you brought it to the temple, that wasn't a private thing. That was a communal thing. And in fact, you invited others in your circle or others that were just there to celebrate this miraculous thing with you, not as a private thing.
Today, it's usually recited as a part of an aliyah.
Today, it's oftentimes recited as part of the aliyah and acknowledged, in a larger context. So here you can see already, there's a website, Torah.org, that I like. It's a little more traditional, right? They're listing out, these are some of the things that might happen to you today that if you survive, here's your armed robbery, by the way, right? An attack by wild animals who normally kill their prey, right? Not that you're being attacked by gerbils, right? Right, not wild gerbils, not that there's a mouse in your house, right? But like a serious animal, right? I mean, there are coyotes in Pepper Pike, right? Like that's serious. Yeah, right? A car accident. So actually the rabbis tweak whether just spinning out in the ice, like how much danger were you really in?
Oh.
I'm just saying,
Right.
yes, your heart may be beating, right? You may be whatever, but the rabbis actually debate whether that qualifies for gomel or not. Like, it was terrifying, personally terrifying, but was your life really in danger?
Up to the bystanders, it says.
Up to the bystander, yeah, so we have to check the closed circuit, the satellite image. Right?
In the morning.
Right, God forbid, right, this is thankfully a few, right, survived a suicide bombing or a shooting, right, a collapsed building, a soldier who came back from combat. Right, here, right, what if you, right, saw a wild animal, I saw a coyote, but it didn't attack me. Right, what if, this is the car went out of control, but came to a last minute stop, a low impact car crash, right? I was in a place where a bomb, God forbid, exploded, after, right? I'm just like, this is what the rabbis are trying to figure out. What qualifies as a miracle? And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be grateful for that, but the rabbis are also want to be careful when you say it or not. Yeah, David, and that will.
I think the problem is that I don't know if it's a problem with the rabbis or what.
We got a lot of problems.
But,
Those are called
perhaps subjective.
It's very, yes, this is very subjective. And
I mean, from Nina's point of view,
terrifying.
yeah, if you're spinning out, okay, if you just spun out, that's not good enough. The impact was low impact, that's not good enough. I don't know, I think if you're in a car incident, we'll call it, and you feel blessed to have survived this,
Yeah, so.
then it's up to you.
So you're for a subjective determination by the way, that is our practice at B'nai Yeshurun. Our practice at B'nai Yeshurun is we don't sit down and go through were the police called? Was insurance involved? Did you have to go to the ER? No, if someone says they want to bench gomel because they survived a difficult situation, we let them. But I think it's a fair point from David saying that it's subjective. For some people.
That doesn't seem to be a bad thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for some people spinning out on the highway, I'm never gonna drive in snow again, right? Right?
We don't have that many people. If we had
That too.
a lot of people coming up.
Yeah, then we'd have to,
I mean,
it would take too
same-
much time at the school.
it's
Yeah,
the
so,
same
yeah, so again, what are Mike, and then we'll do our takeaways. Did you want to ask something? Yeah.
names.
I was gonna say something along similar lines. What if it's not life threatening? What if you just wanna thank God for something that happened or didn't happen?
I'm grateful.
Okay.
No matter.
Give me an example. So I will show you in our prayer book. our new prayer book, the Siddur Lev Shalem, let me pull it up and then I'll show you. They actually add another prayer. Well, like, I'll show it to you. And then I'll put it on the screen. Yeah, thanks, Rabbi Latofsky. Right. You added another whole page. Okay. Shabbat morning. Okay, now let me put it up so those online can see. You're just gonna have to let me spin to find it though. Oh, here we go. Okay, here Gomel you can see is on the bottom, right? Just in our prayer book, it says this blessing is recited by one who has recovered from a serious illness or survived a life-threatening crisis, right? And you can here see on the side comment, thanking God for having been saved from danger or calamity. We're conscious of the fragility of our lives and the gratitude with which we should meet each day of our lives. Right, by the way, don't just look at the translation.
Also different.
Right? They translate it differently. Right? The one who bestows goodness on us despite our imperfections. That's that word chayavim. Right? What is right? Whether it means guilty, obligated, undeserving, right? They say despite our imperfections, which is interesting. So I don't know if this answers you, Mike, but our Siddur adds this other prayer. Hatov hametiv. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, King of the universe, who is good and bestows goodness. Hatov hametiv. And they created a congregational response from the Psalm. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki li olam chasto. Right? Let us give thanks to God, for God is good. So, Mike, maybe if you want to celebrate something what you think is miraculous and good, but doesn't qualify as life-threatening.
You say this.
Yeah, we haven't actually ever used this in our prayers yet, in the service yet, but it's here. No one has, yeah, I guess no one has had something that good that they want to
Well,
celebrate.
on the other hand,
Every day we
what
have
about
something good.
I'm being
Shiano?
serious. Right, we use this is where we overuse maybe perhaps Shechianu. Yeah, we just like it because we feel so good when we say it. Yeah, right, but not everything is a Shechianu is new, right?
Well, something old might be new for the
Yeah.
people experiencing.
By the way, right, the classic example of Hatov hametiv, does anyone know that? If you're drinking and you already said the blessing over wine, and then you keep opening bottle after bottle, you're having such a good time. You say, like, should I say a blessing? Well, I fulfilled the requirement. I said the blessing over the first bottle of wine or the first cup of wine. So you open another bottle of wine and the rabbi say, it's going to be a really good night. Say this blessing. I'm serious. And also they add to that also, a growing family and other things. So this blessing is.
Or that if you're opening the third or fourth bottle of wine, you might not have enough sense to
drive, not to drive. So, yeah, just to sort of wrap up, Gomel is sort of, I won't say one of my favorite blessings, but it's a really powerful blessing. We probably don't use it enough in our lives. There probably are moments, hopefully we will never have to say Gomel in our life. And there seem to be more and more things happening in our world where Gomel can be applied, maybe not to us, but, right, and if you remember how I opened, literally the 5 women, girls, however you want to call them, right, who were made at home, thankfully, they literally said this prayer, Gomel. They were thanking God for being home safe. Halina, and then we'll call it a day. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So in my job, I had a lot of difficult situations,
Mhm.
life and death.
As a physician.
Yeah. And I'm asking if I was wrong. So whenever I had a very difficult situation that 99% so that
Yeah,
they
what,
would
sure.
make it,
Yeah.
I always pray to God Hashem before it
Mhm.
and then thank, but by myself, I
Yes.
can do.
Yeah.
So,
Very good.
Yeah, of course. No, not at all. Right, by the way, no, you should, and I just want to show you one last thing and then we're done, right? In our Siddur, in the Amidah, every single day, 3 times a day, we say,
We thank.
this is blessing number 18 of 19 on the weekday and number 6 of 7 on Shabbat. Modim anachnu lach. We thank you. And I want to show you one specific thing here, right? If you look, right, we thank you for, for our lives in your hands, for our souls in your care, for your miracles that accompany us each day, your wonders and your gifts that are with us each moment, right? So this is sort of like an encapsulating recognition that we have miracles every moment of our life. We say it 3 times a day. And then there's one specific phrase I want to show you. If I can find it. Where's the phrase I want to show you? It's in here somewhere.
It's a psalm that I know
Yeah,
specifically thankful.
yeah. Oh, here it is. Here it is. But I will show you, right? This is the end of the blessing. Baruch atah Hashem, hatov shimcha, u'laka na'eh lehodot. Blessed are you, God. Your name is goodness and praise of you is fitting. What is God's name?
There's a few names.
Tov.
Oh, so
God, in here we're saying your name is, how do they say goodness? So God's name, God actually has a name. There's an understanding. God actually has a name, which is Tov. God's name is good or goodness, right? That all the blessings in this world are thankful to God. And if you want to just talk about God, you can just say good, right? And we always say in our tradition, right, that we want to emulate God. We want to follow in God's path, walk in God's ways. So if we want to be like God, what should our name be? Tov. Let us merit that our name should be good. Thank you for learning with me and an early Shabbat Shalom. And bye everybody on Zoom.